Listening looks easy, but it's not simple. Every head is a world. Hey, hi there. Can you hear me? Hello? Is this thing working? Ah, you can hear me. Perfect. Nothing better than the sound of my voice. I love it. It's such a beautiful sound. Why would I ever want to hear anything else but the sound of this voice? My ideas and beliefs would go unchallenged forever. I could just talk and talk and talk, and no one would ever dispute a word. Nirvana, the perfect world, the perfect existence. I could mute the planet, making my voice a singularity. Nothing but me, myself, and I. It's apparent from the get-go that John Sayles' 1984 film, The Brother from Another Planet, is full of social commentary. We begin with the arrival of an alien in New York City, circa 1980s. Not a typical arrival, but one that lands the black man from another world right at an abandoned Ellis Island, the former capital of immigration. We're not quite sure why the spaceman is here, but we do know he's running from some type of oppression, just like most past arrivals. He's seeking a safe haven, and New York just might be the end line. He makes his way toward Harlem, where he runs into drunks, video gamers, magicians, social workers, druggies, and two more aliens that are in hot pursuit of him. All interesting stuff here. And Sayles' dialogue is spot on. Honestly, it makes the film. At times, you find yourself thinking that some of these scenes, especially his bar scenes, would make a great theater production. Here's the thing. You learn everything about our visiting friend through the things everyone around him says. Sayles makes it obvious that people love to hear themselves talk. Yap, yap, yap. And they love the alien because he never responds. He's mute. I kept noticing how insanely happy people would become around him because they could just talk and talk and talk about themselves and not get interrupted. Sayles, to me, seems to be making this point the most in this picture because if you listen carefully, these bags of wind are really telling the visitor's story. I believe Sayles is trying to say that listening may be the most important aspect of human existence. Yeah, he visits racial history, the drug culture, policing, and other social dilemmas here, but if you watch closely, he just wants you to hear, which none of his characters besides his alien is doing. John Sayles is an important filmmaker who speaks loudly about the human condition. He has decades of work that range from the historical baseball drama 8 Men Out, which I happen to rate the second greatest baseball film of all time, to the complicated murder mystery Lone Star that deals with one of the most difficult relationships of all, father and son. He's an American. He makes good films. That makes him rare. That makes him special, and that's exactly what The Brother from Another Planet is. Special. It's a cult classic, yeah, but it needs to be out there more. It's not perfect. Sayles seems to be learning how to direct here, but his script and what I think his real idea here is near perfect. And one last note. Joe Morton plays the alien, and this is a tough performance, and he really deserves a ton of credit here, as well as his supporting cast. If anything, Sayles really learned about acting here as a filmmaker, and you can tell that he is just getting started. This film is one of the most honest sci-fi films of all time. Good work. I'm glad I listened.
That's awesome, man.
Cool.
Hey, what's your history with the film? Have you seen this before?
Exactly like you were discussing before quickly, that you know, I just kind of saw it in passing a few times as a young, you know, basically as a kid, you know, as a probably as a preteen into my early teens. And the one scene that always, like, the one scene that I really remembered for some reason was the scene on the subway, which is a great scene, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I mean, there's so many great little scenes here.
Yeah.
But the scene on the subway with that's Fisher Stevens, right?
Is it?
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah,
it's
the card trick guy.
the card trick guy. Yeah, and that was always. I mean, that was right there in the back of my brain, Joe. I mean, I really remembered that very.
That and the other one that Jeff mentioned earlier was always. I've never forgot those two scenes. That one that you just mentioned, and the scene with the video game where he's got the girl when he speeds up the video game for the girl playing the whatever.
Yeah, I thought, you know, and I once said on the show that Delicatessen probably had one of the most unique sex scenes I'd ever seen. This one definitely might top it. It honestly, I mean, it was when I was getting aroused watching it.
Well, I was getting really hot when David Bowie and that other
Andy Clark
with the slime.
Oh,
that was good stuff, man. That was really good stuff.
Are you talking about the curdled milk?
Yeah, the curdled milk exchange, sexy.
But honestly, man, you know, it's funny too, because when we were talking about this earlier with Under the Skin, and, you know, it obviously keeps coming up about letting a little bit of time pass after you watch a movie. Because when I watched this last night, I was uncertain. I was uncertain, and even my initial reaction was that I didn't think that I liked it that much. Didn't hate it, but I wasn't crazy about it. I was kind of like in between somewhere. I knew I wasn't going to come in here and go, oh my God, like, you know, the man who fell to earth. I was just like kind of like against it. I watched this last night. I slept and woke up and started to write a little bit, and, you know, just try to come up with what I thought that Sales was driving at. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this guy has this mute character walking around, and all I could remember was that everybody's just talking and talking and talking and they just want to hear themselves talk. And I'm like, well, that just can't be the point. And then it kind of like it kind of dawned on me that what everyone's saying is basically about the character himself, you know. So you kind of learn through everybody's babble that, you know, what his backstory is.
Well, it's just
which is a fascinating way to tell a story.
Yeah, I mean, just in line, it just works really well with the other films too, because just the same thing in line with those other films. It's, you know, these literal aliens coming and taking a look around, and what they make of, you know, what they see sheds a light on who we are. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just Sales just cuts right to the quick, where, you know, he just makes him a mute character. So it's for like it's just the most obvious but simplest way to achieve that. You know
now,
what I mean?
It's very similar. I feel like another film that would sort of like be like a good sort of complement to that would be Being There.
Right. Yes.
Where everyone's kind of like,
that would be a perfect that would definitely fit in with the weirdo alien pictures for sure, man.
Right.
Yeah.
And what Right. And we actually debated Being There, right, as him being some kind of, maybe not so much an alien, but some kind of an entity, right? Like some kind of a...
Well, he walks on water.
At the end.
Spoil it. Talking about spoilers.
We've already...
Last shot of the movie.
Just jump right to the end.
We spoiled it long ago. We probably, knowing us when we did Being There, I mean, I don't remember exactly, but I'm sure that was the first discussion right off the bat. Like the end of the film, which is ridiculous.
Did we do Being That? We did Harold and Maude.
Oh no, we did do
last.
Right, we did the last detail on Harold and Maude, but we definitely were talking about Being That.
Yeah, that's right.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
But
I agree with you about Joe Morton's performance. By the way, it's great, man. It's great to see Chaplin alive and well.
Yeah,
you know
everybody's
what I mean?
performance in this movie solid. I honestly, and like some of the best stuff was just listening to those guys talk in a bar, and what those guys are doing are just they're telling you the brother from another planet story in a sense, and that's what that's what makes the dialogue fascinating. I mean, it like, and again, it didn't hit me until the next day that this is what was going on. It kind of hit me when they were in the where were they, in a museum? I think that's when I kind of got the idea of what he was trying to get at, but it hit me the next day, and those scenes in the bar are just like, they're awesome. And I could sit in I'm not a big guy. I don't like going to plays, but man, I could watch like that in the theater, like the way those people.
That's one of the notes that I made too, was that the banter was very play. I thought it was, when I was watching, I was like, oh, this must have been a play. You know what I mean? Until I started looking into it a little bit more.
Right.
No, it's a Roger Corman movie without a budget. Dialogue is cheap.
That's right. Yeah. Well, he does a good job, man. He must have been I know he was a novelist or something for a while.
Well,
he
must have been a player. I mean, yeah, he must have been a player. He wrote. It's funny, that he does sci-fi here, and and that's obviously a cousin, a distant cousin to horror. Like it's a line that you like to say, Joe. But he cut his chops, Billy, right doing that. He wrote The Howling, and Piranha, and these are like horror films that they have a little bit more substance to them if you look into it more closely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's great. There's actually, I guess it's a sidebar, but I this is one of my favorite stories that I've discovered recently. Have you guys ever heard of this movie Night Skies?
No.
Okay,
no.
So this is like one of.
Well, are you going to tell the E.T. story?
Yeah. So I never knew this whole story, but after Jaws came out, John Sayles wrote Piranha, right? And Spielberg loved it, so he hired Sayles to write the script for this movie Night Skies, that was going to be a sequel to Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but it was going to be a horror story about these aliens that attack a family on a farm, and there's all these cattle mutilations and stuff. So John Sayles turns in his script, and half of the story involved one of the aliens bonding with the kid on the farm, and he has this elongated finger that glows on the end and can heal things, right? Well, this movie never got made, but then of course that all went into E.T. and then John Sayles went and made Brother from Another Planet
in a sense too, because he.
Oh, totally. And so, yeah, John Sayles basically took everything that they didn't steal from his script and the other half, like the horror element, became Poltergeist. So basically they took John Sayles' script and split the horror part into Poltergeist and the, childlike sense of wonder bonding story and turned it into E.T. And then he took whatever he had left and turned it into Brother from Another Planet. So he's great, but
he basically got 3 movies out of his idea for Night.
Yeah, wow. Exactly. Wow. But Brother from Another Planet is great. I had never seen it before. I thought it was hilarious. Cool. I was laughing out loud at times.
It's funny. It is.
Yeah, he's great, and the guys at the bar are great, and Bill Cobbs is the old dude in the hat who's like worried about diseases. Yeah. Like, you never know what's going to come down. The satellites float around in space, come crashing down. Right. Got to be all kinds of germs on those things. Right.
And that's also, like, in that, him saying that is just John Sayles obviously, has a love affair with horror movies, although, like, for the most part he's distanced himself from horror, over the past, couple decades. But even that idea of satellites coming down to the ground and crashing to Earth with germs is like right out of Night of the Living Dead.
Or the Andromeda Strain, I think, is the first movie to. Well, no, yeah, the Andromeda Strain is the first story I know. Michael Crichton wrote the book, and they made a movie out of it, where specifically a plague gets set loose by a crashing satellite. Right. That was 69, I think.
Right.
But
and Night of the Living Dead is 68, I believe. I mean, it doesn't matter who came up with the idea. I mean, I don't want but it's but it's all the same,
That's I mean, I think that John Sayles is one of those guys. I don't know that he has a love affair with horror. I think he's one of those guys that our old pal Bill Shetty hates, who used horror to, develop his career
to get us
a little bit.
Right.
Like, I think from what I've read, like he just writes. He still writes scripts. Like,
he makes all his money,
and then
makes
his own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but he's great. I love, I also went through a John Sayles binge watching period, and when you come into this movie, if you know him, you kind of know what you're in for a little bit. So it's, for me, it was a little bit predictable, everything. But man, he's a good writer. His dialogue.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like Piranha, Alligator, and the Howling are all top-notch horror movies, like just top-notch. These are his screenplays.
By the way, that's him as one of the Men in Black,
and the other's David Strathairn.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was a really young David Strathairn. Well, he uses Strathairn, often, but it's funny too that they're the Men in Black, chasing an alien. Albeit they're aliens, but they're Men in Black chasing after aliens, which is obviously there's there's definitely some kind of a nod there.
Brother from Another Planet is really heavy-handed for my taste, but it doesn't sink the movie because it's such a low-budget movie,
and it also has a lot of humor in it too.
And it's very funny, and it takes a lot of risks, which is great for a low-budget movie. Like that's the whole point, is to take risks because you're not gambling, someone's entire fortune on the movie. So
yeah, he gambled his own money. I think he had won the money from the MacArthur Genius Fellowship or whatever, and he spent pretty much all of the money to make this film, which is friggin' Cassavetes-esque, actually.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's so great, man. And Joe Morton, like the first movie I ever saw Joe Morton in was Terminator 2,
right.
And even in that movie, I was I don't know, fucking 12 years old when I saw that or something. And even at that point, I was like, this little light went on over my head. I'm like, hey, that guy's a good actor, and I'm always surprised that he didn't end up being more of a leading man in movies,
right?
But he always pops up in supporting roles, in movies and TV.
Right. I mean, he's definitely you're right. I mean, he's been in a lot of big movies. I mean, from American Gangster to Speed to Terminator 2. But yeah, he hasn't, after Brother from Another Planet, Billy. Yeah, he doesn't really have his own movie. Where
there's only room for one Denzel Washington.
Well, that's the thing, maybe.
That's what I hear. That's
definitely the thing. Hey, listen, let's get Jeff in here because we haven't heard any of his thoughts about Brother from Another Planet. So, Jeff, why don't you tell us how you feel about it?
I loved it.
Yeah, cool.
I place a lot of importance on comedy, or like something sort of like being drawn into something through its comedic elements.
Yeah. Do you think that this is a straight out comedy? I mean, is this a comedy to you? Because I was thinking about that today. I'm like, the more I thought about it, is it a comedy? Because
up until that overdose, it's it's laying on the comedy pretty thick.
Yeah.
Like even the like Devo like movements of the Men in Black.
that fight was hilarious in the bar.
Yeah.
Right. Well, he filmed them like he would have them walk backward.
Yeah,
I was reading, which is kind of bizarre, but it works definitely. The fight in the bar show is completely ridiculous.
Or the football scene. the guys throwing the football around.
Running around the bar.
What's that all about? Oh my god. Yeah, I mean,
I love another thing I love about these movies, man, especially the low budget ones where you can't afford to there are a lot of movies filmed in New York, and it looks nothing like New York. Like they do everything in their power to make it look like a car commercial, right? And these low budget movies, you go back and look at them, and they're such great time capsules for how the city actually looks. Like I recognize those streets. I don't recognize the streets in a Michael Bay movie. So
right.
I love that it's a document.
Absolutely, yeah. It definitely captures the grittiness, the darkness, and at times the scariness, of what New York City
I love
was.
those two hicks or whatever from Indiana who wander into Harlem.
They're at a convention, like a self-help convention or something.
But the real funny thing is, if you think about it, they don't tell don't tell those guys where the subway is until after they've had a few drinks and it's dark outside. And then they're like, go 3 blocks south. I don't know if those guys fared well that evening. I'll be honest with you.
It's a scary place to be at night.
Night. Yeah. Oh boy. Anyway, but no, Jeff, I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad everybody liked this one because it's a lot of fun. Joe, let's talk a little bit about John Sayles and what your experience might be with watching some of his films. I have personally seen a few of them, and I really, I usually dig where he's coming from. He's definitely humanist.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say, man. Is he's so rooted in the communities that he's talking about, and he likes to move from community. He's very political, very populist.
Agreed.
A lot of populist ideas in his subtext and everything that he's doing is very. It's almost like the Coen Brothers in a sense where he really takes the local flavor and makes that a character of the film, with like in films like Lone Star and some of his other films. So, yeah, you know what the thing is, man. Again with this filmmaker as well. I watched a whole bunch of his stuff maybe 10, 15 years ago,
Right.
So I don't remember. I saw Eight Men Out pretty recently because I showed it to Susie, but I haven't seen any of his other stuff in a long time.
Well, as far as going back and rewatching Eight Men Out, how was that experience?
I liked it a lot, man. Yeah. I really liked that movie. Hey, what's the best baseball movie? Wait, let me guess. Hold on.
Yeah, take a guess.
I can't. I know it's not Field of Dreams.
No.
Is it would it be?
I don't even know if I would put Field of Dreams in my top 5 baseball films of all time.
Yeah, I know you. Hold on. Major League?
Yeah, Joe, it's Major League. Absolutely.
I don't know. What is it?
Numbskull. The Natural.
Oh, The Natural. Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt, The Natural is my favorite.
So wait, you like baseball, Tom?
Yeah, I do.
I thought you hated sports in general.
I don't watch sports except for baseball at this point in my life. I mean,
and you are an aficionado. You consider yourself.
I know a lot about Jeff. It's fair to say I could talk intelligently about baseball.
Oh my god, dude!
Yeah.
Billy's fucking with you. He's a baseball.
Is he being a dick right now?
I don't know.
No, I'm
Sounds
not.
like he's being sincere.
Thank you, Joe, for undermining my
thought
effort
you knew
to
that he was
have a nice conversation with Tom.
Tom's
as a man that goes to Mets games and has no idea what the fuck is going on. I'm in desperate need of a friend.
Be 35 years old and not know what's going on during a baseball game at this point in your life, Billy.
It's taken effort, but I'm proud of what I
and it's funny because I think you would really appreciate the game. Honestly,
it's the thinking man.
It is, but historically, it's fascinating. If you ever get a chance, it's a lot to take on. But if you watch Ken Burns' baseball and just start from the beginning and just watch an episode here, an episode there, I think you could really start to understand what the beauty is about this.
Oh, you read the first chapter of Underworld. Obviously, you've read Underworld, the Dom DeLillo book, right, Billy?
Well, and that's the thing. Like as you pointed out, it's probably the best baseball writing.
Well, Tom, yeah, next time I see you, Tom, I'm going to give you this book because it is like not only some of the best writing I've ever read, but it's like basically about a baseball.
You talked to me about this before.
Yeah, the whole thing is about the shot heard around the world in
the 56 series. Right?
Yeah, yes. And it's like 40, 50 pages of, Frank Sinatra's at the game, Jackie Gleason's at the game.
Wow.
There's a little black kid in the game, and you're following Roosevelt, Hoover's at the game.
Isn't J. Edgar Hoover there?
J. Edgar Hoover. It's friggin' phenomenal. I got to get it to you. You'd love it, Tom. You got to check it out.
Right.
So here's the thing, Tom. I love good baseball movies. And The Natural I saw when I was a kid, and I watched that over and over and over again. I love the mythology of it. Obviously, that movie is based on the King Arthur legend, and it's amazing that they made that work so seamless. I mean, I like reading about baseball. The Moneyball,
it's a good film.
Fascinating.
It is. Absolutely, yeah.
So I love anything about baseball. It's baseball itself that I have
That's amazing
to really embrace.
Hey, Jeff,
roots.
and this is a good plug for this book, Jeff, because Jeff turned me on to what wound up being one of the best books I've ever read that has to do with baseball, Jeff, and that's the Universal Baseball Association.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something which I tend to borrow. Like, I think, Jeff, you keep buying it, right? And I borrow it, and then
you're on my second copy right now.
That's funny. But if you guys really want to read something that I think really captures well, so many things, but Jeff, it really captures the obsessiveness about the sport, right? With people, yeah. I mean, beyond anything that's imaginable. To be honest with you, it's called the Universal Baseball Association, Joe, and it's a great plug for this book. And anybody that's in, I'm sorry that we've turned sci-fi into baseball.
Yeah,
but we are the Cutting Room Movie Podcast, and damn it,
really jumped the rails on that one.
How we do things.
But and Robert Coover is the author.
Yeah, it's really put it on your list, Joe and Billy. I think you would both be in love with this book.
All right, cool. What's it called? Say it again.
The Universal Baseball Association.
All right, cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah,
it's pretty short too.
Yeah.
So it's not much of a commitment.
Yeah, it won't take.
Well, that'll be better than the last book that Dave Pace recommended that I read.
Yeah, Billy, the next time that you're online waiting to watch the next Michael Bay movie at a movie theater, it's a perfect book for you to read while you're standing there waiting to get in.
But Dave Pace recommended the Foucault's Pendulum, which was a great book, but it's like 1,200 pages long about conspiracy.
That's by that Italian guy, right?
Umberto Eco. About it's all about insane conspiracy theorists. Like,
I made it about 2 sentences into that book, and
it is insane. It is.
Well, Dave recommended that book on air.
Yeah,
that just goes to show how much I'm listening to Dave when he's talking.
But I read it based on his recommendation. It's a great book, but it'll seriously friggin' make your brain ooze after you watch it. Read it, man.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm excited to have Dave back on. You know, Joe. I mean, he's really, he's really been an interesting guy to have on the show.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conspiracy theories and everything else from Dave.
Yeah,
I love you, Dave, man.
We got to get him. Me too, Dave. I really do love you, and I'm glad that you're back on. But let's get back to Sales and the brother from another planet. We were talking earlier about the sex scene with the video game. I want to just talk about that a little bit, because that's just really, I mean, Billy, you gotta love someone that's just, gonna do something just a little bit differently, a lot differently, to be honest with you, and it seems that Sales really has his finger on doing a lot of things differently in this movie, which is really what makes it which really makes it just a nice little picture, man.
It's just crazy because I mean, the thing is, I see everything that he's ever done in this movie too,
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird. The guy's carved out this little niche for himself, and it really is like the Sales verse, it's just that ensemble cast of characters, and he's almost like Steinbeck to me. Like, it's very insistent on this culture of
Americana. He's all about America.
But it's reportage, it's journalism more than all of his work feels like nonfiction to me. I mean, other than the video game sex scene, of course, but it's weird. It's like you go into his universe and you're completely, you're in a Sales movie instantly.
Yeah, he's got that feel, which is one of the best things you could ask for a director, is just that they could give, like, when they're giving you themselves and how they look in the world, and they're translating it on the screen, and you could watch, Billy, that director, like, where you could just, you turn the television on and you could watch something for 3 seconds and who that director is.
Oh yeah.
That's, and even some poppy guys have it. Tony Scott has it, Michael Mann has it, as well as, guys like Haneke or Sales and the Coen brothers and so on and so forth. But that, to me, whether you're making popcorn movies or you're making independent films, if you have that little bit of flair, that little bit of touch, where you could just sit there and you boom, in 3 to 5 seconds, I'm watching this dude's movie. John Sayles, the brother from another planet. Guys, anything else you want to throw out there before we begin of saying goodbye to everyone?
I think it was an awesome program.
Yeah,
I love the theme. I love the theme of the visitors from another planet, and I've wanted to do that one for a while. Yeah. And I think all three of these are fucking superlative examples of. I think every one of them nailed what they set out to do. So, and you couldn't have picked three more different films.
But all like really related to each
all
other.
spiritually connected
Yeah.
to each other.
I was really
definitely.
pleased with how they really paired up. It's really fun, man. You know, I think of it as like, you know, if you're gonna have a movie night and you know you're gonna have a movie party or something, you know, these would all go well together. You know?
I think there's a movie that could have worked with.
Oh yeah, you were gonna say that. What is it?
Yeah, Starman.
Starman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love Starman. Yeah.
I've never seen that.
And
one.
it's John Carpenter too. It's so funny. All the time we spent on Horror Palace, you know, before we went independent, before we went rogue, you know, we never did a John Carpenter. We've never done a fucking John Carpenter movie.
We haven't?
Never. And you know what the odd thing is that John Carpenter.
Well, Halloween's coming.
Yeah, well, Max controls that, and you're getting all kinds of crazy real killings. And every Halloween, I'm like, do something. Like, I'm like, Max, if you're listening to this, do something different besides serial killers on Halloween.
I'm really having trouble with that program that he's put on, Tom. I might decline on one of those, to be honest with you.
Why?
I don't think I'm going to be able. Well, the one sounds very close to Experiments in Killing. I'm just concerned that I'm not going to be able to give an unbiased view of it. Like I'm just really loathing watching it. You know, it happens every once in a while.
Halloween show. You're a co-producer on the show.
I know. Max, I'm just telling you.
Reach out to Max. I mean, there's plenty of time.
Well, I'm just telling you before we get
shake it up a little bit. And plus, we did this shit last year, real killings, and we're doing
like he wants to get the filmmaker on, and it sounds so close. Look, it's not like Experiments in Killing. Like I'm already unbiased over it. I haven't even seen the fucking movie.
Okay, fair enough.
You know what I'm saying? So I might just be quiet during that segment. I don't know, Max. I'm having trouble with it just because I wrote a script that sounds close to it, but then I'm gonna be watching it. And I'm like, oh, I was trying to do this different, and I would have done this. You know what I'm saying? And it's not fair to Max. It's not fair to the film. It's not fair to the people who listen to it. You know,
it's not fair to anybody, especially if you shut down. We don't want that to happen.
Well, you know, Max has bailed out of movies when he didn't want to watch.
Not that the listeners need to know any of this nonsense, but we no longer interview the guests during our recording segments on Mondays. We do it at a different time. You don't have to be there for that.
Oh, well, yeah, I know. We can talk about it on. But listen, hey, Max bails out of movies that he doesn't want to watch. Doesn't he?
Yeah, he's done it a few times.
He's done it a few times. What was it? One of the Ron Howard movies, right? It was a couple of times. There was a couple of times there where he's like, "Oh, guys, I'm really busy. I can't get to watch this."
See my ass. This nonsense. With
he's busy watching Mel's Diner every day.
But listen, to me, the Halloween show it's a
no, but just that movie. Like I'll be on. You know, I have no problem with the other two. It's just that one is I'm really loathing. Already I hate the movie. I haven't even fucking seen it. You know what I'm saying?
You have to email Max and you have to talk to him then. If you I think what you're saying is legit. Like it's totally legit, and I totally feel you. What you need to do is just.
It's like if if somebody scheduled the double that they put out that with that nerdy actor. Or whatever.
I have that in my living room. I was gonna watch that tonight.
Yeah, I could never watch that movie. Like I wrote a screenplay. Like I've had it optioned.
But it's isn't it Dostoevsky? It's like based on.
Of course, man. But I modernized it. I made it fun. You know, I did things with it. I have no idea what this filmmaker wrote, what he did with it. And you know, Bertolucci did something with it. 100 years ago. But I still I can never.
Billy, are you listening to this?
Are we still recording? Is this part of the show?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the hijinks. This falls in the hijinks.
Dun, 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 dun.
This is great Joe Christiana panic stuff.
This is Joe in Woody Allen mode. I don't know if I'm capable of really handling that sort of a situation.
No, I mean that Joe.
All right, Jeff is going to help out, Joe. Here.
That Joe, say, the show aside, so would you, do you intentionally avoid any kind of movie that seems like something you're writing at the time or that you have written that hasn't been produced yet?
It's only been a couple. Like the one is The Double, because I spent friggin' 2 or 3 years. I made a short film called The Double. You know what I mean? That's one I can't. And then this one just is very close. It's happened to me a few times where I'm working on something and then something very similar comes out and I'm bummed out.
The real one,
but I mean, because I would suggest watching it and seeing, how similar or how dissimilar, because you might get inspired to tweak something that you have.
I know.
Like you might see him doing something that you're doing. You're like, oh, maybe I want to do it like a different, different.
I feel your
That's
pain,
like
Joe. I would want to avoid it at all costs, because there's just, when you're working on something and there's something dangerously close to it, it really short circuits you.
It's like
in the
it's
worst
encouraging
possible
in one way, because it's like, oh well, I had an idea that because I'm not in Hollywood, I don't know the right people, I didn't luck out, whatever the fucking case was, it just didn't happen. But it's an idea that is feasible, but then so it's encouraging in that way. But in the other hand, it's like, oh well, I just gotta friggin' abandon something that I friggin' put a lot of work and time into, and heart, into it. So it's just whatever, man. I hear you, Jeff. But
it's kind of like it's kind of like when Kubrick wrote the Aryan Papers, and Spielberg came out with Schindler's List.
Yeah, I'm just like, no. But I will say,
more or less, I would say that's pretty much 1-to-1 ratio.
I couldn't resist that.
There is another one I just watched, actually. You brought up Jodorowsky earlier, Billy. Have you seen any of you guys seen Jodorowsky's Dune?
No, I want to see that. That looks really interesting.
Yeah, really pretty.
There's that great ending where he sits down to watch David Lynch's Dune, and he's freaking out, and he realizes by degrees that it's terrible, and he's just so happy.
Yeah.
That movie, that documentary looks fascinating, Joe.
Bill, thanks for ruining the documentary for me.
Sorry, guys.
Gotta go. Spoiler alert. I gotta go.
Oh, my God. All right, guys. That'll do it. The Cutting Room Movie Podcast is brought to you by Christiana Productions and New Media Limited. The show is edited and co-produced by Joseph Schreck and produced by Thomas Detloff and Joe Christiana. You could like us on Facebook at the Cutting Room Movie Podcast and follow me on Twitter, Thomas Detloff at TCRM Podcast. You can also check out Joe's film work, at Christiana Productions.
Experiments are killing or the double.
Yeah. They're still in production, Joe. We'll give these people time. Let them just first go over to ChristianaProductions.com so they can see what's going on, and then they can learn a little bit about what's coming up. Right. Hey, listen, Max Cook, he's got a new blog. It's MaxCookUncorked.com. Check all that nonsense out. He's got all kinds of stuff. He's talking about his everyday life, Joe. He's just, it's ridiculous. And he's
watching Alice, Mel's Diner.
He's talking about Alice and Mel's Diner and Three's Company and Chrissy and Janet's panties and
very busy.
No, Jeff, this is why you left Facebook. Was like, you can't.
Yeah.
Who cares? Right?
I just scrolled down my Facebook page a couple last week or whatever, and there's just Max puts up a 10-second clip of what's her name from friggin' Mel's Diner adjusting her skirt, and all you hear is Max's voice. I just came in my pants, and that was the end of it. That's what he's up to.
I know what he's up to. It's an embarrassment. Hey, listen, Max Cook and Adam Shoulder, definitely check out their Bowler Hat Productions and their Mimosa podcast show. That's at MaxCookandTheCounselor.com. Check out Jeff Schreck's band Black Wine, their new album Yell Boss. They're at Don Giovanni Records. Dave Pace is now a contributing writer at Rue Morgue magazine. Look for his work over there and check out his blog on horror media. This is my favorite part now of the show. It's called La Politique Psychotronique, and you can find it at psychotronique.anidealforliving.com. You're welcome, Dave. Music from The Cutting Room is done by the Zillatones. Check them out at www.thezillatones.com or search for the Zillatones at Reverb Nation. We're going to be back next week. We got a new DVD release review of Larry David's film, Clear History. Until then, we're over. We're out. Ciao.